Everybody, and welcome to Puck on the Parkway. James Burley and Daniel Rebane here to talk everything New Jersey Devils hockey. And we got a lot of good news this week. Not always this year, really, have we been as bubbly as we would have liked to have been, but Devils starting to kick into gear here. Jack Hughes thinks the Devils are about to pop, and it looks like they may be starting that trend a little prematurely. Now, second in the division, tied for points with the Hurricanes, although still having played more games than most of the league. Devils fans are feeling good. Dan, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm not gonna lie. These past couple of games have made me a bit more positive of the direction of the team. I've liked where they're going. I don't know how you've been lately, but I'm ecstatic. Baseball offseason is finally here, so let's go New York Mets. Let's go get Juan Soto. Giants still stink. But Army football is really good. So, I got Army football and I got, Devils hockey. So that's what's keeping me alive at this point.
And no mention for the New York Red Bulls, who have
Oh, well,
just
you know what?
had a
You're
great
right.
upset
Yeah,
in the
you
playoffs.
I forgot to mention them. Like, shout out to them because I didn't think they would be able to do it, but they pulled through. They showed I think most of the country that this might be a different team. So, shout out to the Red Bulls. Thank you for bringing that up. Shout out the Red
Can't
Bulls.
can't, can't forget our friends right across the Passaic River in Harrison.
Yeah.
So let's talk Devils though. Let's stick in Newark for the time being. And in Newark last night, the Devils took care of the Montreal Canadiens. Looked a little bit patchy at times, but the Devils stars show up. Jack Hughes has one of his best games of the season, probably his best game of the season. They
Oh,
win
no doubt.
5-3. Brader, excellent as he's been all season. We were just looking at some of the Devils players specifically and what statistics that we were more impressed with. And to our surprise, so many players are around a plus 10, plus minus. Brat is not Brat's up there. Kovacevic is up there on the shutdown pairing defensively. That's huge, huge, huge news. If you want to start with last night, Dan, let's jump right into it. It's been really good stuff from the Devils so far. 4 wins in their last five.
Yeah, I think obviously the biggest difference I've seen so far this year is that they're actually starting games on the right foot. Obviously, we all know what happened last year, 1-0
Yeah.
them. They would
Mhm.
start, down and they would always have to come back. But, this year they've turned that around for the most part. I think they're over 70% of the time they're scoring first, at least. So, they start the game off 2-0 and I think, Jack Hughes we talked about it, had a Jack Hughes game, and he had two primary assists. The first one was just magnificent. Like not many players can do what he did, cutting through half the Montreal Canadiens team and then finding Brad at the back door for an easy tap. And I mean, if he's gonna turn it on, like he said, like, this team's about to pop, I think, we're in for some good performances going forward.
Yeah, I think I mean you said it all pretty much for how it went last night and what having a firing Jack Hughes can mean for the team. They looked really good in that battle offensively, especially. But I would like to look back at that Western Canada road trip that they just
Mhm.
came back from. They did get that big win going back to before Halloween over the Ducks on the at home. And then they went on the road, beat the Canucks 6-0. Now this is a really good Canucks team, admittedly
Yeah.
not at full strength, but the Devils caught them in a vulnerable position and really made them pay. Then late after a few days break, you'd think that they'd be able to put it together, but unfortunately, going down 3-0 to the Flames, that just really didn't go their way. And then, even though they're up against it for most of this game against Edmonton, they take three really good chances and they get a shutout in net. The goaltending, I mean, we could start there, Daniel. Like it's been addressed. Sheldon Keefe said goaltending's not been good enough, and then right afterwards, it's been a pretty good upward trend from goaltending. So, I mean, that trip going into last night, good momentum for the Devils, barring that Flames game, but three straight shutouts, two going the Devils' way, one going against them. Speaks to the goaltending for one, and it also speaks to this team's endurance to bounce back from that Flames result.
Yeah, and I would say like um I thought goaltending played really good in that Flames game. It just, they couldn't find that goal and sometimes that happens. I think, Blake Coleman deflects that puck past Markstrom with like 5 minutes left in the third period. It was nothing for the
It
whole
was
game.
a close game.
So, and then it all unraveled from there. But like, you know, that's all you can ask for in a goalie is just keep you in as long as possible.
Hmm.
And these 5 games, I think I kind of wrote down these stats. They're giving up 1.6 goals against per game, and they have a 9.466 save percentage. I mean,
Hmm.
that's elite. Like if you can have like obviously that's only 5 games and they started off slow to start the season, but if you're gonna have consistent performances that you're gonna have like around like 92, 93% save percentage for an extended period of time, I think you're gonna win a lot of games with that. So I've liked what I've seen recently from the goaltending, from the defense as well. They've played really good in front of Markstrom and Allen. You see Siegenthaler, diving all over, blocking shots. What was that Markstrom that was reviving him, or was that Allen reviving him?
No,
That
I'm pretty
them,
sure that was Allen, right?
yeah.
Was that?
So that was just a funny
I
clip.
don't remember. That
Clip
was
this,
very funny.
yeah,
I don't
just a
remember.
funny clip to see. But I think the defense is taking it upon themselves to block more shots, get in front of pucks, and make it easier for the goalies to see the rubber and make as little saves as possible. And that's a positive sign from these last 5 games as well. So we'll see if they can keep this going, but I've liked it so far.
Yeah, I think it's something that's going to have to continue before we give it its full praise. It hasn't happened
Hmm.
consistently enough yet.
Yep.
Just looking at the numbers, Jake Allen about league average in terms of his advanced statistics. Markstrom towards the end, a couple of bad performances really making him a couple of outliers in his performances, still really tanking his numbers long term. Although I've been mostly satisfied with how the goaltending has gone, and especially lately, absolutely has turned around. The 9.46, or I guess it's a 9.47 save percentage if you round up, uh, is phenomenal in that span. And it's not
Well, you
something that
you
we're used to
you
getting.
well, you see what a bad performance could do to a goalie's numbers. Like we saw Shesterkin last night give up 5 goals, and I think his save percentage went from like 94% to 91. Like,
Hmm.
bad if you have
This
a
early in
bad,
the
yeah,
season, yeah.
exactly. Like bad performances could just tank your stats and they'll be misleading. But again, you brought it up, inconsistency has plagued the Devils. So, hopefully this is a positive turn going forward.
Yeah, I agree, and I hope it continues that way. Um, Jake Allen has been everything the Devils needed in a backup goaltender
Yeah.
this year because when times are tough, it's good to have a guy that you can lean on. Markstrom's proven he's going to be a good goaltender, but he's not going to be Marty Brodeur every night.
No.
So it's always good to have Jake Allen waiting in the wings, especially because the workload for Markstrom at the age of 34. If the Devils expect to be a deep playoff run type team, a contending type team, they're going to need both of those guys to carry a heavy workload through the regular season. Um, so yeah, I think it's been a pretty good past few games. I think there's a lot to have liked about the Devils' performances in that time. And I think it starts with the captain. We have to talk about Nico Hischier. Not
Oh
only
yeah.
is his goals total the talk of the NHL right now with 10 goals in 16 games and at a point per game pace, but we also have to acknowledge the fact that he hasn't lost any bit of his game. Defensively, he's still the monster he once was, but now um, there's a new freedom that he's allowed to play with under Sheldon Keefe that has allowed him to be just elite in front of goals. Is he going to end the season with the most goals in the National Hockey League? Probably not.
No.
Is he going to continue scoring goals at this clip? Probably not. But the fact that he has this now at the start of his season um, is doing wonders for this Devils team. Not only do I firmly believe he's the most important player that this Devils team has, I think if you look at the numbers, especially last season, how well the team performs when he records a point.
Hmm.
Um, I think that statistic exists for a reason, and it's because he is crucial to this team's success, and he has been playing that way. Whether it's in the circle, whether it's in the D zone, whether it's in transition through the neutral zone, or whether it's in front of the net or in the slot on the power play because he's got 4 power play goals on the year as well. I've been absolutely impressed by him. He's my favorite Devil for a reason, and he only makes me feel better about feeling that way. If you could sum up Nico's influence on this Devils team thus far this season and just in general, how would you go about doing that?
I mean, I think I could just say it simply. I mean, he's playing like the team's MVP. Like, for a guy that's taking as many faceoffs as he is to still have a 55% faceoff win percentage. I
Mhm.
mean, that's just, shout out to him. He's taking that he's putting everything on himself to make this team better. Playing over 20 minutes a game, playing on the penalty kill, playing on the power play, taking all those penalties like and then he's playing against the team the opposition's best players. Like he's taking that upon himself to shut down other teams' best players. And for me right now, I would say he's probably the Selke winner, the Selke front runner, especially with Barkov, missing the I think he missed like two or 3 weeks or something like that.
Mhm.
But it's gonna be him or Barkov to win the Selkie. I think it's he's shown that he is that defensive guy, and now that he's is putting up more offensive numbers and with his 10 goals, I think he could easily be another 40 goal guy if he takes just a bit of a step back. Like obviously he's shooting over 20%. But like if he gets it down to maybe like 15%, 16%, he could be a 40 goal scorer. And I don't think many people thought Nico Hischier would be a 40 goal scorer coming into the season. So, you know,
Well,
right now, I mean, he is the team's MVP.
well, if we went back to some of our preseason or early season predictions, I did say that the New Jersey Devils, I mean, knock on wood, horns down, would have 5 point per game players. I'm missing the mark on some of those at the moment. Brat, Nico, and Jack are all there. Timo Meyer's almost there. He's neck and neck with Stefan Nason with 13 points in 16 games. And look, if he can continue at this rate, both of those guys, I will very happily accept it. I did include Dougie Hamilton in that list of 5 players.
He
He's
got off
on
to a
nine
slow
points.
start. A slow
Got off to
start.
a slow start. I'm sure he'll catch it up. Probably won't be at 80 points, but could still hit the
No.
70 point mark
Yeah.
with a good number of assists and a 20 goal season or around there. He's only got a goal yet to his name, 16 games in, but I have high hopes for him going forward. Um, Also, just real quick because I did mention Nico Hischier's 4 power play goals. The Devils have one of the better power plays in the National Hockey League
Oh, yeah, let's talk about that for a bit.
now that we have this wasn't on the slate for our show today, but now that we have more than a dozen games behind them, more than 16 games now, we have enough opportunities to break down power plays. They've scored 14 power play goals. That's, I believe, third in the NHL at a 28.6% pace. That's fifth in the league. They've also got 2 shorthanded goals, which is tied for second in the league. So there's a lot to like about this Devils special team. On the penalty kill side, Devils not quite as good, but still 11th with an 84.1 percentage, just 2 percentages away from being tied for fifth. So this is a team that is amongst the best at special teams. In the past, the Devils did have good power play, good penalty kill, but going back 2 seasons ago, it was them at 5-on-5 that was particularly special. Consistently within the top three, top four of teams playing at 5v5 in the league against teams like the Hurricanes and Golden Knights. They were among the best there. Now their metrics falter a little bit in 5-on-5. Still one of the better teams, but at the start of the season they were middle of the road. Now they're towards the top 10. The special teams being as good as it is. We talked about adding Nason to that first unit. They did that. Seems to be working.
Hmm.
Getting another right shot there, getting another better net front presence. Um, so they made good changes when it comes to making the power play productive. But have we seen a regression maybe in 5-on-5 play, or is it just the power play is good, so we should just judge that for what it is?
Um, I don't know. I think 2 years ago, like 5-on-5 was special. I think what we're seeing now, 5-on-5 for the Devils, probably where, middle ground. I think that's where you'll see them consistently, top 10, around the top five area. But I think, we talked about this preseason with the biggest jump with this team was adding more power play goals. And it's struggled to start the year, and then they made the change to Stefan Nason on the first unit, and it's kind of opened things up. And what I've noticed recently is now, you see Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, and Nico Hischier, they're all moving around in different places, like you saw with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I
Mhm.
think that's what's kind of opened this team up a bit more. Like, we would always focus on Jack Hughes being on, the left point, and that's where he would run the team. And, he'd either shoot or he'd pass, and then you'd have Jesper Brown on the right wall. Now they're moving all over the place. Jack Hughes is skating around the whole zone. Jesper Brad's popping up in the slot. Nico Hischier is popping up on the half wall as well. I think that just, has more looks that a penalty kill unit has to worry about, like, oh, where's Jack Hughes, where's Jesper Bratt, oh, he's popping up in the slot, where's Nico Hischier now? And then you forget about Stefan Nason in front, and he might not score all the time in front, but his presence in front of the goalie is a big one so far. I mean, he's got a couple goals. He's screening the goalie for a couple goals, like that Jesper Bratt one that we saw in Edmonton. I believe it was Edmonton. So I think what we've seen so far offensively is I think what we'll see going forward is, power play being around the top five, and 5-on-5 being in the top 10. And I think that's a recipe for success going forward.
Yeah, just as an update, Devils, according to Money Puck, eighth in expected goals percentage at 5-on-5. Um, Admittedly, they have more games in their back pocket, so they do have an advantage against some other teams in this top 10.
Mhm.
Most of the teams in the top 10 have played more than 12 games. Devils on 16, Leafs 14, Avalanche 14, Edmonton 14, Kings 15. The Kings being perhaps the surprise of the season thus far. They've been exceptionally good. Not a lot of people had that going in. And as another thing, not that it matters much, but Money Puck does the entire aggregate of all the advanced stats, their power rankings in the NHL. Currently have the Devils at number two, slightly ahead of those Kings, but 3 percentage points, and that's a massive drop in this list behind the Hurricanes, who are far and away the league's best team in terms of these advanced metrics.
Mm.
So make of that what you will. I'm not sure I fully understand what all that stuff means.
Math,
But yeah, but I think to a degree, some of it can be seen in the way this team is played.
no doubt.
Certainly being a lot better, both at 5-on-5, but even more so on special teams. And special teams wins games. So and to have the goaltending keep you in games, that's the only recipe the Devils can ask for. They're not going to win every night, but if you have your goaltenders keep you in games, and you have a special teams that's good enough to score goals at a 30% clip almost, and prevent penalties, giving up power play goals at an 85% clip almost, you're going to be in pretty good shape to win any game on any given night.
Yep.
So that is absolutely good news. It's time to get into some of the bad news, though, because there is some, admittedly,
Mhm. Yeah.
injuries, and I guess not so much bad news, but some unfortunately tough decisions were made by the general management of the New Jersey Devils. Seaman Nemec is sent down to Utica, joining Seamus Casey. Two, uh, we're going to end up talking about those guys together, even though those two roster moves were made several weeks apart.
Yeah.
But we knew that both of those were probably going to happen. At
Yeah.
least
Yeah.
one of those was pretty guaranteed. The other one felt likely. Have to make room for the likes of Brett Pesce and and Luke Hughes
Lucas.
coming
Yeah.
back from injury, excuse me. Um, but now it feels like we were never going to see Simon Nemec play an AHL game ever again last year.
Yeah.
But with the improvements on the blue line, I think this represents an opportunity for him to refine his game, be the top pairing defenseman, be one of the better two-way defenseman blue liners, perhaps in the National Hockey League in a few years. I think this can be a really good positive experience for him, while it does suck that now he can't be playing at the NHL level, because he's certainly good enough to be there. And I think Seamus Casey proved in his little cameo at the start of the season that he's good enough to be there too. Both of those guys will benefit from having this experience in Utica, in a team that just fired their coach and is doing awful to start the year. My challenge to Simon Nemec be the difference maker on that blue line? Can you galvanize that team to play a tighter ship on the back end? Easier said than done when you can only play a little more than a third of the game as a defenseman, but he's going to get a lot of minutes down there. This is only going to be good for him. Um, it hurts a little bit that he has to go down, but I love the upside prospect that it represents potentially.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off what you said. Like, some people might say this might be a negative, but like for me, this is a positive because, I think we all kind of tend Seaman Nemec into this lineup going into the season. But if you look at Kovacevic's game, I mean,
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest news about this is like, nobody saw this coming and that kind of just forces, Nemec to be better himself to earn that spot back. And, obviously so far he hasn't done that. Kovacevic is just playing out of this world. I think he leads the team with a +10 and he's playing on that.
level with Dawson Mercer.
Yeah, he's playing on that shutdown unit with Siegenthaler and kudos to him. He's taken that role coming in from Montreal, and Seaman Nemec is now gonna have to go earn his spot now. So like, now the onus is on him to go down to Utica, play his game the way, we all think he's capable of playing and kind of show the management that, he might he's too good to play down there. But like now, bringing with Kovacevic coming into the fold, now it's just a numbers game. There's no room right now. So I think this is kind of a positive thing because again, he's only 20 years old. He doesn't turn 21 until February. Like I think people might think that he's older than he is or more ready than he is, but he only has like, a handful of games in the NHL. He doesn't have a full season in the show. So I think going down there, playing as much as you can, like even though the team stinks right now, I think, they're dealing with injuries as well. We'll get, into that further when we talk about, the other injuries in New Jersey, but you know, goaltending hasn't played well down there. Defensively, they haven't been doing well down there, and offensively, they haven't scored points down there. So
Awful.
I
That is
think
so bad.
I think going down there, helping stabilize the ship. I think this could be only positive for him to go down there, um, and earn his role back. Go play 25 minutes. Go play first line penalty kill. Go play second line power play. Because obviously Casey's going to play first line power play, but go play mad down there. Go earn your role back. Show Tom Fitzgerald that he made the wrong decision and force him to call you back up. So, I think we'll all be watching, but I think could only be positive for Simon Image and for everybody on X and Twitter from other teams. Get your trade proposals out of there. He's not being traded. Like unless you're gonna give me like a ridiculous haul that nobody ever wants to give up, don't even try. So that's all I'm gonna say.
I try to stay away from the trade rumor mill side of Twitter for any sport for that matter. It only does bad things to your brain. I feel your pain there, Dan. Uh, I I am I'm absolutely excited at what it could mean for his game down the line. But we got to talk about Jonathan Kovacevic because
Yeah.
I think a lot of Devils fans, and this has been said now, but we have to address it. A lot of Devils fans, and myself included, wrote him off as like a seventh D kind of stopgap
That's
player
what he was
that
gonna
came into the
be.
team,
Like, well,
and
that's what we gotta say. That was his role. He just
and
earned it.
yeah, and prior to the season and in preseason, it became a little bit more clear that he was going to be a mainstay in the team. I think he earned that both in preseason camp and with his play at the start of the season, as well as during the preseason games themselves. I think positive quotes from both Sheldon Keefe, Tom Fitzgerald, and then the members of the media who were most closely with the team were all very much saying you guys are underrating Jonathan Kovacevic. We all had to see it to believe it, and now we're all believing. And I don't think anybody is like turning around and asking for him to vacate a spot for either Nemec or Casey. He's too valuable to this team. I can't believe how good he has been, and we got to give our flowers because Kovechkin is a dog. He is absolutely such a valuable piece to this blue line. I can't imagine where this team would be in some games without him, honestly.
Oh
And
yeah.
for that matter, I got to look across the blue line to someone who's been his partner for a big portion of the season, and that's Jonas Siegenthaler, who had a bit of a down year last year, dealt with injury for part of the season, but was immense in 2022-23 as the shutdown guy. And he kind of follows a similar pattern in terms of Kovacevic, how he joined the team. Um, Coming from Montreal in Kovacevic's case, where he was a valued defenseman, but kind of a guy who was expected to take another step sometime, a guy who was valuable in his role as a shutdown guy, but never really the focal point of their blue line. Comes to New Jersey and ends up assuming a big role. I look back at where the way Jonas Siegenthaler joined Washington when he did. It seemed that for the Capitals, he was kind of a lesserly important defenseman there, even though he played this shutdown role. He comes to New Jersey, immediately assumes a top pairing role next to Dougie Hamilton, and is the perfect complement to the Devils defenseman, who's really just a fourth forward. So to have those two guys together now, who I feel have come from similar backgrounds with their teams, now have formed what has been one of the most dominant defensive pairings across the National Hockey League. I'll have to pull up Money Puck again to see where they compare against other defensive pairings. I know the Devils' lines have been pretty consistent. Whichever line Nico Hischier centers is great at 5-on-5. So let's look at defensive pairs only. Siegenthaler Kovacevic is 12th in the National Hockey League, but if you make minimum ice time something over 100 minutes, they're into the top six behind Hughes and Hronek, Keandre Miller, Adam Fox, Cal Dahan Malinsky, Gavrikov Anderson, Gostisbehere Walker. They're right there in some pretty good company towards the top of the league. And I don't know if a lot of people were expecting that coming into the season.
Yeah, no, like you bring up how they got Siegenthaler, and it's kind of the same way how they got Kovacevic. I mean, we look at Kovacevic's his numbers from last year. I think he played 16 and a half minutes per game last year. Right now, he's averaging almost 20 20 20 minutes, 45 seconds of ice time. Like that's more than 4 minutes of ice time per game. Like, you
That's
know,
that's that's 5 or 6 more shifts at least.
yeah, so like, I think we have to give credit to Tom Fitzgerald here. Like obviously, you got to hit on your big draft picks, you got to hit on your free agent signings and but to be able to like, this was an underrated move coming into the offseason. Like I remember we traded for Kovacevic, like that's a good, seventh D coming into the season and obviously injuries helped him, gain his spot, but like, they must have saw something in him that they're like, yeah, this could be a guy, and get someone on a deal like him. I think it's only this year, and you'll have to re-sign him, but he's making less than 800K this year. Like that's a super trade for the Devils. Like we just saw Montreal. They could use someone like Johnny Kovacevic right now. So to fill out your defensive core with guys like Siegenthaler, Kovacevic, and Brett Pesce to surround guys like a Hamilton, a Luke Hughes, and then when Casey ever comes back up, or like more offensive guys, I think that just
It's
helps
music to
balance.
my ears, man.
It balances this team out a bit more. So, shout out to Tom Fitzgerald, man. He's always finding these gems, man. Like another
And
one like Paul Cotter.
and Paul Cotter, Nason have been absolutely fantastic in his reintroduction to the team as well. Now that we've seen it on the ice consistently, start of the season was a bit rough, but now that we've seen consistent stretches where this team can defend as a unit, it's been beautiful. I think the game against Edmonton was I loved the way that they played. They didn't see a lot of the puck in that game, but they dominated still. They
Yeah.
got doubled in shots and they dominated. That's not an easy thing to do in this league. And it reminds me of some games that they should not have won in 2022-23 that they eked out. But there's more talent in this roster now. I firmly believe that as well.
Yeah.
Looking at the forward lines, top 10 in the league, the Devils have at 9 Mercer, Hischier, and Meyer with a minimum of 100 minutes played. There's some interesting lines in this top 10. You know who the number one ranked line in the National Hockey League is? I'll give you 31 guesses.
What conference is it in?
East.
What's the number one? Is it on Carolina?
No, you're not
Okay,
gonna get it.
I'm not gonna get it. What is it?
Chinikov, Sean Monahan, and Marchenko for the Columbus Blue Jackets.
No
And and
way.
and
That's
they're ahead,
crazy.
and they are ahead by quite a bit in terms of expected goals percentage. And
That's
number
funny.
two is Will Cooley, Filipino, and Capo Caco.
I
So
just want to say, like, off the forward lines, I think we said it preseason when they first kind of, made the lines that Timo Meyer needs to play with Nico Hischier and Dawson Merson, and that's paid off. Like that's a line that they look like in sync with each
mhm.
other. And then recently, I'll say this, we dog on Palat for his play this whole season, but I think he's starting to find his legs playing next to Brad Hughes, and I think that might just be more to Hughes and Bratt finding ways to get Palat into the offense. Like we saw that with Jack yesterday, making that pass from below the goal line to Palat on the left
Mhm.
hash, and he rips one pass past Montembeau for a second of the season. But no, I've liked what I've seen. I think he played his best game yesterday. So
Yeah,
hopefully
I think a lot of guys did.
I think he's just got to be a net neutral on that line, and
Mhm.
I think most people will stop, get off his back a bit more. So, I think you roll with what you got so far. We'll talk about the fourth line going forward with all these injuries, but I've liked what I've seen from the top nine from the Devils so far.
Well, let's move right into talking about that fourth line. Good transition there. It's had a bit of a different flavor lately because of some pretty key injuries to the team. Curtis Lazar, as we know now, out long term. I don't think we've had a show since that news broke
No,
about a week ago. Um, Nath Bastian gets into a little scrum in the corner, and
I think he's
his
got a broken jaw. I think
his
I,
yeah no his jaw is the reported injury. There's a video you can catch it of his seemingly when the jaw injury happened, or probably definitely when it happened. Um, that's what fighting will get you sometimes, and the Devils are going to be without him. So the fourth line, as it stands, kind of looks like Curtis McDermott, Justin Dowling, and Tomas Tatar, at least for the moment. That could change. You brought up some other names. Um, McDermott being in the lineup, how do you feel about that? Because the team has seemingly been better when he's been dressed, and um, I love that because he brings an edge that very few other Devils have.
Yeah, I'll say this, there's certain games that I want, McDermott in the lineup, and sometimes, you need a bit more offense in the lineup. And that's why I'll say like he's a tweener guy. Like, he won't play all 82 games, but probably play like, maybe half the season. Um, but I've liked what I've seen from him, he's not taking as many penalties as he was last year, and that was the big thing with him is like what is he doing on his team if he's not fighting and he's just taking all these penalties that's why he wasn't in the lineup for a lot of times. But so far he's played a clean game. He's thrown the body around. He's dropped the gloves when he's needed to. And I think he's bringing a spark to this team that's been missing, in certain games and certain moments in games. So I've liked what I've seen. But if you want to talk about some of these guys that I think could get called up from
Throw me
Utica,
some names.
yeah, I think there's three guys. The only problem with right now they actually have three. They'll have three spots open in the NHL once they put Bastion on IR. Because I'm gonna say he's got a broken jaw. Like he took like about 5, 6 clean shots to the jaw with his arm pinned against the board, so he couldn't really defend himself. So that kind of sucks for him. But I'll say this: I think Nolan Foot's an option. I think he's played the best he can for a Utica team that's struggled to score. He has 8 points in 8 games, so he's the guy that could go on your fourth line, give some offense, and he's a power forward. He'll bring that physicality to the game. We talk about Brian Howland, and he hasn't had an extended look in the NHL. He's also got 4 goals down there so far this year. And then we'll bring up Adam Beckman. He was acquired in that trade for Graham Clark this year or
Mm-hmm.
this offseason. He's got 3 points in 4 games. I think any one of those guys will could be called up. The only problem with Utica is they're also dealing with their own injury problem. They don't have a couple guys in the lineup right now, so I think their last game they ran with 7 defensemen. So Maybe they don't even call anybody up just to leave as many bodies as they can down there in Utica, but I'd say probably you'd see one of those three guys get called up.
Hmm. I I like that you mentioned even guys like, for example, Hallinan, who haven't had a look yet. I think have done enough in Utica to perhaps suggest it. DeSimone offers you that option on the back end, of course. I think he's a guy that we'll see get some time with New Jersey sooner rather than later because I think the idea is to let Casey and Nemec marinate at least for a
Yep.
while they're there.
Hmm.
Beckman's an interesting one because he's a guy who's not on a lot of people's radar. Hallinan also isn't, but at least people may be more familiar with that name. Beckman's a newer one. Would be interested to see what he could provide. And then Nolan Foote, I think, is the guy that most people would expect. 8 points in 8 games. He's been one of the few impressive players in Utica in what
Yeah.
has otherwise been a ugh, really,
Disaster
really
start.
bad season. So if you were in charge, how many guys are you bringing up? How many scratches are you going to run with? Do you bring up DeSimone and then Foote, or maybe Hallen and let Foote continue to cook down in Utica because they're going to need the help?
Yeah, I think the one thing I'll say with all three of those guys, they bring a physical presence to this to the team, and that's kind of what you need down in the bottom six. And we've seen
Yeah,
a bunch of guys do that so far this year, and that's the luxury of acquiring a guy like Beckman for a Graham Clark. Even though I didn't like the trade, because I liked Graham Clark's potential. You see what Beckman could provide to the team. I would say maybe give him the first shot. You traded for him in the offseason. Um, there's a reason why you made that trade. Like a Paul Cotter, you made that trade for a reason. Why not give him the first shot? And then obviously you brought up DeSimone. I think, you're gonna need a seventh D at some point. Why not call him up? You already have two right-handed defensemen down in the minors like Nemec and Casey. So you want Diot to play as well on the defense. So, right-handed D, there's not much room there. So um he's a veteran presence that knows his role, and he'll be there to fill any spot if any injury occurs. So I would say probably Beckman and DeSimone would be my choices, but I wouldn't be mad at any of those three guys. I think all three of those guys kind of deserve a shot to prove themselves in the NHL.
and I think each of them will at some point get an opportunity. Maybe it's not now, or maybe one guy comes up, another guy goes down in a week's time. We'll see what it is. Before we go into our final bit of talking points for the show, we're going to look at some prospects. But I want to ask, what is this blue line going to look like in a year's time, 2 years time? How are they going to figure out how to fit all these guys on this roster? Is it that the Dougie contract is up, you let him go? Brendan Dillon's not here for that long. Like, how is this going to work? Because right now they've just got so many attractive options and only 6 spots to place them. Maybe 7 if they run 7D every night.
And I want to say, like, this is a good thing that we're having this conversation because I think for the
Of
longest
course.
time, we're always scrambling around, like, who's gonna play on this defense? Like, we have nobody to fill these lines. So I just want to say that this is a good thing that we're talking about this. I've always looked into the future of what this team could look like and like, down the road. And I think you get to a certain point where you trade Dougie Hamilton. I think, couple years, I would say probably it's more 3 years down the road. I forget when his contract ends. I think it's 3 years. So maybe 2 years, you trade him in his final year and you finally open that spot or that roster spot up for like Casey. I think, Simon Nemec is eventually going to get his way back into this roster. And I think once you get,
Absolutely.
yeah, once Dougie Hamilton is either, he goes to free agency, like his contract expires, or you trade him, I think that spot is going to be for Casey. Um, and I kind of like where this team is going because, obviously you can transition those guys when they're 22 into a full-time roster when they already have maybe like 200 AHL games under their belt. And I think that's big for NHL defensemen is to get as much playing time as you can. Not everybody could be like Luke Hughes and step into the to an NHL team. And we've seen his struggles. I thought maybe you should send him down last year to kind of get that confidence back. But not everybody's like a Luke Hughes that can step into an NHL roster and be a full-time guy going forward. So if you get as much games as possible under your belt as early as possible, and I think that can only benefit you going forward. So I'll say, 2 years time. Do you have Dougie Hamilton's contract up?
I pulled it up. His contract expires in 2028, so he's got more seasons, including 2024-25. In 2028, he will be a free agent, unrestricted, of course. So, I mean,
So 2027,
until he's
28.
35.
So 27, 28 is his last year, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, 2026, 27 would be his last year. So the year after that, I would run Nemec. Maybe Kovacevic is still here, maybe not. But I'll just say his name for now. Simon Nemec. Uh, Actually, you know what? I'll say Kovacevic's not here because it'll help me out. So you got Brett Pesci, Simon Nemec, and Seamus Casey on the right side, and you got Siegenthaler, um, Salayev, and Hughes on the left.
No Hataka, no Mazul.
Hey man,
They got options, man. They got
that's
options.
why that's fine. That's
Well,
why we
look, this
bring it
is
up.
all
Like
this is all conjecture. It's a good problem to have,
like
and that's the point we're
I
making.
I always forget we have Salayev. Like that's the
Mm.
like that's just the cherry on top. Like to have a guy like Anton Salayev, playing again, another guy playing pro minutes over in another country. I think that just benefits him more that he'll be over here in 2 years' time.
I
Um,
can't I can't wait till 2026, 27 when the
we
Devils are
already
run
have a
by
Stanley Cup, by the way. We
when
already
the
have a Stanley Cup, and
Devils are
and we're just
defending
getting better.
Cup champions, Hart Trophy winner Jack Hughes is passing the torch already at the ripe age of 25 to the likes of Lenny Hemenaho, Arseny Gritsyuk, and Anton Salayev.
Uh,
And goaltender Nico Dawes wins the Vezina. So I mean, the future's bright. Future's bright. There's some guys who haven't even played in the NHL yet that we know are going to be ballers. So um,
and you bring
speaking
up,
of,
yeah, speaking of future's bright, I think we got to talk
jump right
about.
in.
I think I remember drafting this guy this past offseason, and I'm like, it's an interesting one because we don't have that many centers. Like, if you look at our center depth in the organization, it's terrible. Like, we already saw Curtis Lazar goes down. We're calling up Justin Dowling. No offense to Justin Dowling, but I mean, I didn't ever think he'd get a call up this year. So he's played decently enough. I'll say that. But we got to talk about. I want to say his name is Matthias, but like it's Matyas, but it's Matthias Milovsky. He's Czech. He's from Czech Republic or Czechia, and he plays in the Quebec Major Juniors. And I mean, this guy going off right now. I mean, he's projected to have over 100 points in the CHL. So far through 12 games, he has 7 goals and 16 assists. He has 0 penalty minutes in 12 games. He's a plus 14, and he's a 58.1 face-off percentage, winning percentage. I mean, obviously he's an overager. I'll say that. That's why he went so late. We drafted him in the 6th round. He's an overager. We drafted him when he was 20 years old. Not many guys, get to that point in the draft, but I think the Devils saw something in him. He's 6'1", 190 pounds. He actually played really good in World Juniors last year. So I think that he's been a late bloomer. And I remember talking to his Czech guy, and he loves him as a prospect, by the way. So
Mhm.
um, I've liked what I've seen from him. Um, if he keeps developing at like the worst, he could be a fourth liner. Like he brings an overall 200-foot game, and he showed that he can put up numbers in the queue. Like obviously like stat like putting up points in the CHL. We've seen players put up 100 points and do nothing in the NHL. But you know, what I saw from him last year in clips that I've seen, what he's doing this year, I think he's got a bright future, especially at the center position. I think it would be Malofsky and Samu Salmonen, who's at Denver University right now. Those are our best two center prospects. So um he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. Like he right now he's playing as our best prospect. Like points per game, he's almost at 2 points per game. Like that's
Yeah,
That's ridiculous. Obviously, it's 12 games, but he's playing at a clip that he could put up one of the more impressive seasons as a prospect in recent Devils history. So I'm keeping an eye on him. He's one of my favorite guys right now. He's up there with the top guys. I think I might put out my prospect rankings once we get closer to December. I think he was in my top 20. He might get close to the top 10. I mean, like obviously I'll have to see him more and maybe watch a full game to see what maybe his ceiling is, but I think his floor is at least he could be an NHL player. And for a 6th round pick, that's the big thing about our scouting. I think with all the late round picks that we've had that have the potential to be NHL players, I think that's special for scouting wise. Because like we've seen all of our 1st round picks, make the NHL. That should be a given. Like that, your 1st round pick should easily be NHL players. But to have guys like, Gritsuk, who's a 5th round pick, be NHL caliber, you know, Malofsky be NHL caliber. Like we have all these late round picks that have the potential to be NHL players. I think that's something that Tom Fitzgerald and the scouting department should be, praised for. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from Malofsky and hope he keeps doing it, man. Because I like every time I check scores, he's putting up at least like 2 or 3 points for up in the queue. So shout out to him, man. Prospect highlight of the episode, Mateus Malofsky.
currently on 23 points in 12 games in the queue this year with 7 goals, 16 assists. In a 62 game season, if he continues this pace, that'll be 36 goals and enough for 119 points. I think that would be 83 assists.
Yeah, he was a
I
bit.
just had
I'll
it up
say he
on
was
Elite
a
Prospects.
he was a big assist guy last year. I believe he put up like 60 assists last year. And the team he's playing on is like one of the best teams in the queue. I'll say that. But for what he's doing as a
It's one of the best teams in the queue because he's a part of it.
yeah, like I'll say this, like, overagers always, usually put up points. Like, but I just like what I've seen from him. So, he's got the physical tools, he's got the mental tools as well. Like he's a real cerebral guy, 200-foot player. You know, he could be another gem for this team. So
Yeah.
we'll see what he does in the next couple of years because at the end of this year he could end up in Utica and Utica could use some centers right now. That's all I'm saying.
Hell
So
yeah, they could.
so
Um, yeah. Not that there were any Connor Bedard like outliers in the 2024 World Juniors. He finished third in scoring in that competition behind only Cutter Gauthier and Yuri Kulik. So
and
um
I believe he's a righty.
let me pull that up. I've read that he was right. I don't want to get it wrong.
So
Um
we've needed right-handed players.
he is
So
a right-handed shot. So that's a big profile that fits New Jersey. A playmaking two-way center
guy could
could
take
be huge to have
face-offs.
depth for
Yep,
down the
depth.
line for this Devils team.
That's all you need, depth.
Yeah, and I think that's a good positive note to end it on for what's been a pretty positive run of
Well, that's
things
what
to
happens when you
continue for the
win games,
Devils.
James. That's what happens.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think Devils fans are enjoying it right now. And for good reason. Hughes, Bratt, Hischier, Meyer, those guys all hitting at the clip they want him to. The goaltending seems to be getting it right, and the blue line has been so much better than what we're used to now.
Third
So
line killing
uh,
it. We
third line,
we love those guys.
Mason and Cotter are difference makers, game winners. So I think that's just about all the time we have for Puck on the Parkway this week, but got through a lot and enjoyed really doing it. So, for the New York Mets fans, I'm actually wearing a Mets shirt as well.
Hey,
For the New York Red Bulls fans, not the NYCFC or Yankees fans, Jets, Giants, it's not easy. We
yeah,
get
we
it.
both stink, so
We've been there. So, yeah, I think that's all the time we have for Puck on the Parquet. For Daniel Rebane, I've been James Worthy. Thank you guys for joining us. We will see you guys next time, and let's go Devils.
yep, let's go Devils.